Hey everyone, we're live here at the Hoboken Historical Museum. We're here in the upper gallery, and this is our Hoboken Art Talks. And we have a great guest, we have a great artist. It's Hens Breet. His exhibit will open up February 1st, which is a week from Sunday. And we're really excited to show his work. He is an artist we haven't really known. And when I saw the work, I just said, we got to show his work. And you can tune in on YouTube, Facebook, and we'd love to hear your questions. And I'm just going to shake your hand and welcome you. Up high,
Thank you,
up
Bob.
high. Sure. And behind us is some of your work, obviously. And you think it looks pretty good up here?
I think Bill did a great job hanging everything.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Good.
And it's always great to see it in such a in an environment like that.
Right, a lot of light.
A lot of light. White
They're all
walls,
together.
And they're all together.
Yeah, sure.
I'm used to seeing them in crates.
Right. These
Yes.
are your old friends, for
Oh,
sure. So you put together a great set of slides, and I think that's going to drive our conversation.
Okay.
So we might as well go to the first image, and that's coming up in a moment. Kind of very intense. When you look at this photo, what do you kind of think of?
I don't remember this photo being taken, but yeah, I was cross-eyed as a little kid, and then I like to think that, and my mom would disagree with that, but that was because of my two twin sisters, and I think I got confused. But, seeing them, I started becoming cross-eyed, which is probably not what happened, but I like to tell that story.
Okay.
My mom says, no, that's absolutely not true. But anyway, I got operated on those eyes, and then wore glasses for 10 years just to straighten
Right.
everything out.
And but your eyes look perfect. And
I'm getting a little older, so I have reading
well, we
glasses.
all are. We all are. So that's like nothing. And do you remember being cross-eyed?
No.
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 Okay.
I do remember wearing glasses as a little kid and getting, somewhat bullied for it.
Right.
Or bullied, kids would call me the professor and stuff like that. And
Just because of the glasses,
because of the glasses.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Which I think, maybe back in the 70s this was a little less common at that early age, but I think kids now.
Now you see it all the time,
Right,
really
so,
young. So
yeah.
they're testing things earlier,
right.
and trying to figure out what's going on. Cool.
Yeah, this
cool.
wasn't really anything to do with the actual vision. It was just, I guess, it's a muscle thing. So
Uh-huh.
what they do in an operation is they snip the muscle, and then you have lenses to sort of keep everything aligned.
Right.
And then after a certain period of time, your eyes can do without those lenses. And
Sure,
that's how it happened to me.
Tell us a little bit about your background.
I come from a modest religious family in the Netherlands, in Zwolle, which is a nice medieval town, some 70 miles northeast of Amsterdam. Like I said, it's a small town, so we were religious. We would go to church often. I was singing in church choirs and things like that.
And do you visit?
Not as much as I would like, because it's far away, and and it's not as easy to get there, and not as cheap to get there as, say, from here to, I don't know, Boston or Philadelphia.
Sure.
So,
Excellent. So that's quite a tribe.
yes, 5 brothers and sisters. My younger brother has passed, unfortunately, but everyone else is still in or near the same town that I grew up in.
Really? So you escaped?
I sort of escaped, yeah. I went, I'll talk about it later, but I left town to go to art school in a different town, and then through different travels ended up in America. But yeah, we were all very close in age together. So
Yeah,
we would go on day trips, and I guess we looked like a little school trip or a school
Yeah,
outing like that, yeah.
nursery. Yeah, sort of. That's amazing.
Yeah.
We don't have generally big families like that here.
Right, I think it was a little unusual even when I grew up, although my understanding is there are plenty of religious families, especially Catholics, which we were not, but that have even bigger families.
Sure.
But if you grow up in a family like that, that is just, that is your normal, that's your environment. So,
Yeah, sure. And your parents, what time of work involved? Or your mom was busy, I know.
My mom was a full-time mother and what do they call it, housemaker?
Homemaker?
Homemaker
Yeah.
is the word, right? And my dad worked in an office, I think in sales for like farm equipment and stuff
Huh,
like that.
interesting. So anyone else in the family get involved in the arts?
I think my great grandfather dabbled in drawing and in painting, and if I'm correct, that's a good question. I do remember, and I think my parents still have a picture of some kind of river with a boat in it and a little house on the side that's still hanging on their wall, and I think that was a great grandparent of mine.
Uh-huh, cool.
But whether he was, he was probably not a full-time artist. He was probably just an amateur or hobbyist. And,
Right.
I think he copied that painting. That's what
Uh-huh,
I'm told.
right.
Yeah.
And are you a full-time artist?
Well, I am now. I didn't, for most of my life, my working life, I've been a interactive developer. And,
Mhm.
it's just in the past couple of years that I've gone back to making art full-time.
Right, right. I guess we'll go to some of the early year slides. And if you told me that was someone else, I might think that.
Right. So yeah, like when I was 13 and I did no longer have to wear glasses, I sort of like transformed into this artsy, rebellious kid, and it was the 80s, right? Early 80s. So big hair and wearing black and looking moody was kind of the thing you did. And this was a school trip, if I remember correctly, and of course, on a school trip, you can actually go a little wilder because you don't have to come home to your parents, so you could like get a little crazier with your hair. And,
Right,
yeah.
right. It's a great shot, great shot. And we have some other hair shots.
There was a lot of hair because it was the 80s, right? And, yeah, this is me in art class. There's a local institution, I think it still exists in Zwolle, where I took some art classes, and this was someone who took a photo.
Right, right. I know you mentioned you as a young kid, younger than this, you used to go on the beach or different places and do different drawings. And
Well, that was actually after this.
Okay.
I'd always been interested in drawing and then not so much painting, but drawing was a thing you could easily do as a kid. And I had a good friend, a childhood friend, who was also into that. And what we would do for what we now call play dates, we would go to each other's houses and get a big sheet of paper
sure,
and two pencils, and then we would tell each other stories and illustrate it. And it would be like, like as if we were like warlords with armies. So I would draw a mountain with like, here's my little army, and then he would draw a little helicopter and said, beat that, and I would draw like a plane or a tank.
cool. I like how you're describing working off each other.
So we did that. That was a fun way of
Sure.
of drawing, and I was always interested in that. And I don't know what got me to take art classes, but I did at some point. And then during what you're referring to is during family vacations when at a holiday resort, the island of Terschelling, which is a very popular Frisian island in the north of the Netherlands. And I would sometimes get bored, but I would still be drawing. And someone at some point said, "Why don't you try and sell these drawings that you made?" And just on a whim, I did that, and it was very successful
Sure.
to my surprise. So I spent that first summer just making pictures of like the lighthouse and the beach and stuff like that, and I was able to sell it to tourists. And then I've been coming back year after year, getting official like licenses, vending licenses and stuff.
Wow.
And I would get frames for everything, and I would work on pricing and subject matters, and
Right.
that's how I ended up deciding, I should do art for a living.
Sure. How old are you when that?
16, 17, 18.
Okay, sure. That must have felt pretty good,
Well, it was interesting to see that people, look at your art and like it enough to actually spend money
Sure,
for it,
sure.
which was, I'd always been like I said, interested in drawing, but more as a casual, like hobby thing. And this is like an age where you're still like trying to figure out who you are, what you want to do with your
Yeah,
life, right?
sure.
So am I going to be like, do I want to be like a journalist, a writer? And I'm like, oh wait, I could sell pictures for a
Right,
living.
sure. Were your parents encouraging of the art?
I'm not sure that they particularly were, but they also didn't discourage me because
Mhm.
I was also kind of a stubborn kid, so I was going to like do it regardless.
Right.
So, I applied to art school and got accepted in Utrecht, and I said that's where I'm going to go. I'm going to try and learn this art as a craft. See if there was
Right. And was it kind of a technical, there'd be basic classes or?
Well, in the first year of art school, of course, you're supposed to like take classes in all kinds of subjects. So we had like sculpting and art history and all that kind of stuff. A fellow student of mine, Joost Meerman, was interested in computer graphics and knew people in that scene and introduced me to computer graphics. And I'm like, oh, that's actually very interesting stuff. Because of course, I've been aware of computers as a thing. At some point, my dad even had a little computer store, but I could never figure out what they were good for beyond like spreadsheets and
Sure.
word processing. But to see that you could actually use them to create images and motion graphics and things like that, I thought, hey, that might actually be a more lucrative is probably not the word, but maybe a more profitable way of making a living than selling watercolors to tourists.
Sure. But
So I
it's
switched majors and
right. But it's a big leap from hand-drawn to using that another technology.
I essentially stopped drawing for a long period of time
Right,
because I
right.
was also, like with most of the things I've been doing, I was getting very serious with it. So one of the things, this was also late 80s, stuff like Photoshop didn't really exist yet. So if you wanted to do anything interesting with computer graphics in terms of art, you'd have to, learn to program.
Sure.
So that's the thing I did, and me and my friend Joost would spend like all-nighters. We'd pull all-nighters just like copying code, line by line from computer magazines because the internet was not like a public available resource. So you'd buy like I guess Amiga World or whatever the magazine was called, and in the back they had like bits of long programs for expert systems, what that we now call like AI and things like that, and we would just copy line by line and then run it through the compiler and have the computer crash, and then we'd go back and try and find
It took
out.
a while, right?
Yeah, no, but also it was a good way of actually learning like the ins and outs of programming and how this stuff works and what a compiler does and how you could figure this out for yourself. So, I thought it was an exciting thing to learn, and then through school, I actually met other people who were also interested in doing art with computers. So,
And was there sort of friction within, like, the student population in the school between, like, the tech stuff you were talking about and the figure
Well,
drawing, or?
at some point, I did try to get my illustration teacher to rate some of the sketches I did that were, I thought, inspired by computer graphics, and he said, "Oh, I don't know anything about computers. I can't really give you any grades for this." And
Right.
I'm like, okay, then don't, right? So.
Sure. But I can imagine that disconnect with an earlier generation.
Right, and of course, the stuff I did wasn't particularly very good either. So I can also understand it from that point of view.
Gotcha.
So,
Right.
what I would do is I would write code that would like generate long strings of numbers and colors and stuff like that. And then what I would do with those colored balls, I would draw these colored balls on pieces of paper and then just change the shading of the colors on those balls, which of course is, as a work of art, even in art school, super uninteresting. So I can totally understand why he was like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be the one grading this stuff. So.
Well, and we were
This is-
someplace else.
This is in France.
Okay.
On some of these family vacations, we would go to France, and again, I was like, I guess I was 16 in this picture or something like that. I'm probably a little bored because I'm not the type of guy to like sit on the beach and get a tan. So I was like sketching, and this is when I was ready to go into town with my map and my folder, my portfolio, and go to a local market and see if I could get anyone to sit for me and
Oh,
draw
really?
their portraits for
Sure,
me.
sort of like a busker kind of thing.
Right.
Sure,
Right.
that's great. And
There's
more-
a picture of me sitting on the ground,
Right.
on the pavement, on the market. I didn't include that picture, but for someone that.
Just if you can go back to the previous picture. So what's going on with the pants? Or is it just the wind?
I don't know.
or-
I'm looking at that too, and I'm looking at the beret too. That's like
Yeah,
like
that's the
glued
French
to the
thing.
back of my No, it's not even French. I think this is 80s like new wave like
Okay,
attire.
sure.
Like you can see, there was a little like scarf too, a little
That's
loose
right,
scarf, and then
yes.
the white pants that were like super tight at the ankles, And then somehow what we did in 84, 85, I forget which band inspired that. Maybe Mindy would know that. But you'd have sort of a beret that sort of like...
Dexy's Midnight Runners.
Was it Dexy's Midnight Runners?
They were the ones that they had, yeah.
They had a beret on the back of your head, not even on top. It was just like somehow, I don't think I used pins or anything. You managed to sort of like put it on the back of your head, and that was a look. That was it.
Right. You're out to conquer the art world with
I
your
was,
portfolio.
well, I guess so, but I guess at the time I was thinking I just looked like fashionable for,
Right.
for a
And the
certain-
sunglasses, of course.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. For a certain subgroup of youth culture, this was, this
Right.
was my being fashionable.
The new wave of the 80s.
Clearly, yeah. And you can see the same hair in this one too.
Right.
This was on Terschelling. At some point, I was actually getting commissioned work too, because people would see me in the street vending stuff, and they'd say, "Hey, I have a little vacation cottage in the dunes. Can you come and paint that?" So I would do that too.
Sure. So I never really thought about it, but are you, in the work today that you're doing, are you working from photographs?
Mostly, yes.
Yeah. And back then, also a photograph? Or would you?
I'm pretty sure I went, now of course everyone has a camera in their pocket,
Sure.
right? And back then, I'm pretty sure I went there on my bicycle and did a little pencil sketch and made like notes of colors,
Right.
and then took it back to where we were staying and made this picture.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's
You're
Vending.
you're trying to get some business.
well, yeah. This was the spur of the moment.
Sure.
And so I just had a blanket and a couple of sketches I made, and I sat down on this bench and spread it out in front of me. And
Right.
watercolors, what were they, 20 guilders at the time or something? And yeah,
Right.
it worked.
You see the people in, let's say, Central Park doing portraits. And
Right.
Some of them are really good.
Well, absolutely, yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and they work pretty quick. And it's kind of performance art in a way.
Portraits is never something that I wanted to do because
Right.
I've done it, and there's always the risk that people don't like their portrait.
Of course.
Because people aren't really like that's familiar with the way they look. Or
That's
the way
not
they
my
come
nose,
across.
right.
That's not me. I don't look like that.
How dare you?
And the thing with a landscape is you don't really have that kind of commentary.
Right.
And if you look at some of the work I made at the time, it wasn't very detailed either. And Terschelling is known for its big lighthouse, like historic, couple hundred years.
What's
old
the
lighthouse.
town?
Terschelling is the name of the island.
Wow. Oh, an island. Okay.
And it has a lighthouse named the Brandaris, which is this big blocky stone thing. And as long as I had that in my sketches, people would recognize that and say, "Oh yeah, this is where I stayed." And
Right.
and they would get it as a.
And your English is impeccable. Is that something you learned in school?
No,
or-
that's what I learned right here
Really?
in America. Well, of course we have English classes in school, and I was always into languages more than into sciences, so there's that. But
Right. So how many years?
32 years in America.
Okay, in America. Wow. So,
In
but
this
still, a
region.
lot of people, still have trouble with a new language like that. So, but
Well,
you're fine.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. So yeah, that's a ledger because that previous photo that you saw, that was I think my first year of doing that, and
These are your sales.
once I figured out that this was an actual business, I started getting serious. Like I said, I would get an official license because
Right.
I think pretty early on someone, I don't think it was even a copper or anything, it was just some neighbors like, "Hey, are you allowed to do this?" And I'm like, "I don't know, am I?" So I went to City Hall at Terschelling and got me a license, which I think I paid 3 guilders for or something like that. So I had a little like piece of paper with a stamp, and then I figured, okay, if I can do this properly, then what I should also do is get frames. So what I would do is I would go to a wholesaler of frames the next year, and I would order a box of, I forget how many, let's say 40, 50 frames.
Right.
Had them shipped to the campsite where I was staying in my little tent, and told the proprietor of the campsite, "I'm going to get this shipment. Can you hold this for me until I get there?"
Right.
So then I would have a big box of frames, and then I would just make stuff on the spot, sometimes in the street, and I would keep meticulous notes of what I sold and also what I spent, and you could see that
You're serious.
I was getting really serious with that.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Sure.
And I you can't really see the final pages, but I made good money.
Yeah.
In
Sure.
certain years.
And how old are you?
I think it was 18, 19.
Right.
I did this up until probably my second year, third year into art school. And then through art school, I had other things that I ended up doing in the summers, and then I stopped doing that.
Right,
I
right.
did this for probably 5-6 years. Yeah.
And, I meet a lot of artists, but just from emailing and, putting the show together, you're very meticulous and very detail-oriented, which a lot of artists I find are not. Very organized, I should say. So I mean
Well,
it as a compliment.
Sure. I take it as a compliment.
Okay,
so,
good.
right? I guess that's just, even though I like to think of myself as a bit of a scatterbrain, I think I'm probably way more organized than I care to admit. But also, like I said, I've worked most of my professional life in tech and in programming, and you kind of have to be organized. So
Sure.
I guess it sort of naturally sort of came to me. And,
Right.
but yeah, I'm not like the wishy-washy artist type in that respect. It's like the way I plan my work is also, I research the materials, research the locations, and then I make not so much make a plan, but
Sure. Okay.
it's not so an improvisation. And
Right.
you can see here, this is also the same early summer work. I would prefer before I would even board the ferry to Terschelling, I would already have a big stack of artwork ready to go. I guess here I am just inspecting my inventory before,
Right.
before
And-
setting sail.
Would a lot of people do this, young artists?
No, I was the only one there.
Really? Wow.
And I haven't been back since,
Mhm.
so we're talking 30, 40 years now. I'm not sure if that's something people do. Like you say, you see it here in New York City, but I understand in New York City, you can actually sell, you don't need a license to sell art in the street, right?
Right.
So-
You can be in front of the Metropolitan and do it.
and that's what people do. I'm
Right.
not sure if people on Terschelling do this now. At the time, I was the only one, so
Right.
yeah.
And what was your parents' reaction?
I think they were amused and maybe even a little proud that I managed to
Yeah, I would
like,
think.
pull this off.
It's not sitting around and just watching TV and the
Right.
computer. Or,
Well, and it meant something to me, like that I could prove that this art is not just this art business is not just some kind of like little fad or a whimsical hobby, or I wanted to also prove, maybe not so much to them, but definitely also to myself, that this can be a living of sorts, like illustration, and
and a satisfaction that people like it and they're paying you.
that's absolutely still something that amazes me.
Sure,
to this day.
sure.
Like the fact that I'm sitting here with my art on the wall because you guys like it. It's
Right,
like,
and
oh,
it
yeah.
will be. It is for sale, so we
And
hope
it
we
is for
get
sale,
some
yes,
people
absolutely,
to visit
yeah.
and purchase.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Well, I built a really nice website as an extension of my art practice, where people can go and commission custom work and order these pieces and other pieces.
Sure.
Because it's if you're going to treat it as a business, I think you have to be serious about it. Then.
Yeah, it takes work, it takes
It
time.
does take work.
Yeah, for sure. And again,
This is also a little later. I think I'm already showing work here that is framed, if I'm looking at what's on the blanket. So,
right,
yeah.
right.
So, yeah, I did this.
And then you
for-
had to watch out for weather.
Yeah. I don't recall there being a lot of bad weather, but
Right.
I would just you collect everything, throw it in your backpack,
Right.
and then wait
Right.
it out. So.
Now you'd have a 10 by 10 canopy tent, right?
Yes, I have a big tent, and well, I started out. I should have maybe included some photos, but I started out with just a folding table
Uh-huh.
and some art in boxes on the table. And the more markets I've been doing, especially the past year, the more I realized that it's not so much like making it look professional, but also it makes it easier for passers-by to see at a glance
Sure.
what you've got, whether
Right.
they even like it.
Right.
Rather than people don't really like to come up to you and ask for prices, because
Sure.
I feel like I would feel that way, but I would feel like that they would ask like,
They're
how much?
shy. They're shy.
Well, they're shy, but also that if they decide not to want to buy it, that they come across as cheap or stuff like
Sure,
that.
sure.
So what I figured out is like I should have everything visible from a distance, so
Right.
no browsing through boxes and stuff like that, but everything is visible at a glance, and you can can just look at it and see the price on it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And then people can just go look at it and decide in their own heads what they want to do with it.
Right,
And then
right,
if they are interested, they'll start a conversation anyway.
right. I think you've learned a lot from all these years of, shall we say, selling on the street in a way.
One of the first
Right.
things I did was figure out that I should price it in such a way. Back in the day, the Netherlands still had guilders, so and 25 was a banknote.
Uh-huh.
So most of my works were 25 or 35. So that's
Okay.
two banknotes. You
Right.
can just check your wallet and look, oh, I still have that.
Okay.
For the impulse purchase. And also all the work was, I forget the exact dimensions, say 20 by 30 centimeters, but small enough to fit in a,
Right.
in a shopping bag.
Right.
So
And
I figured that out.
the work you have here is probably smaller than what you're showing, right? Or-
This this is actually a piece that I specifically made for like exhibitions because I've been getting asked for bigger pieces.
Right,
But all the others, you can see like a piece over there, for example, has this big a mat around it. But typically it's an 8 by 10, which is a standard size
Sure.
that is easy to transport for me in boxes.
mm-hmm,
So yeah, it's all I call it
right. 'Cause
market size.
It's hard when you do these markets and you gotta protect the work, right?
Right.
So you gotta be,
Well, you also have to find a way to transport it in an
Right.
easy way. So you got to keep it protected, but also, if you have actual canvases are way too delicate, so I typically don't bring those. But a lot of the pieces here are on wood panels.
Okay.
So they're pretty sturdy.
right,
And others are into behind glass in frames that 8 by 10 are slightly bigger, and you can get these wooden crates and just put them
make
all
sure
in there.
they're not rubbing and,
Right.
scratching and all that.
And I think we've, Mindy's been helping me a great deal with these markets, and we've sort of figured out the system of how we can pack it up into
Sure.
to 5 wooden crates in
Right.
the back of our
And
sedan.
I bet you can do it pretty quick these days.
Yeah, I think we can. Well, setup is always longer, right?
Right,
Because
right.
you have to hang it neatly, but I think tear down is now half an hour or so.
Right,
Yes,
right, right. And I guess your biggest enemy is wind and,
Weather.
Yeah,
yes, yes.
weather.
We've
So-
had some cloudburst events last summer where,
Right.
But the nice thing with canopy tent is you just lower everything.
sure, yep,
And
yeah.
then you have a sort of little protected
Right,
area.
right.
But then, typically the market's over and you can just go.
Exact, people are running out, so, anyway. I sort of apologized when you did the thing in the walkway as part of the arts tour. Like, it was so cold and I felt terrible, so I just wanted to say
Yeah,
that.
well, it was a good day because
Okay.
I did sell some pieces.
Right,
so
but
that was fine. But
it was not an outdoor day to be selling art.
well, there's no sun in the walkway. So
Right, sure, I know.
If it had been outside in the sun, it would have been
Right,
totally doable.
right,
So,
right. So we're good for rain, but
Right.
not for a cool day.
Yeah, it was definitely good for rain.
Right. And you're working inside here?
This is when I was in art school, and a friend of mine, we would use each other as study objects. So this is me just painting a sketch of a friend of mine, and I think it's the very same friend who took this picture. So,
Okay, cool, cool.
And then yes, computer graphics. So
So it's a big change.
Well, it didn't seem that way to me. It seemed like I'm working with pictures, with images, right? And whether I make the pictures with a pencil or a paintbrush, is that really so much different from doing it on the computer? Of course it is, but it was exciting because it was a new technology that I could learn, and not that I would pretend to say that I already know everything there is to know about painting or
Right.
drawing. Not nearly, but this was new technology. This was done on an Amiga computer, Commodore Amiga, which was our art school lab. Our art school was actually, I think, the first art school in the world that had a dedicated computer graphics major. And so we had like a lab with Macintoshes and Commodore Amigas, and Amigas were like in color, so that was the cool shit.
Right.
And the Macintoshes were interesting, but they were these small Mac Pluses, the black and white ones. So
Sure.
this was, you would digitize an image with, it was a camera with like a wheel with red, green, and blue lenses, and then you would sit in front of the camera, which is how this picture was taken, and then you would rotate the little wheels to get the R, G, and B channels.
Right.
And then you would composite that, and people in school we would write code to composite that to get a full image and to
Sure.
work with that.
I mean, I think of like the work you're doing is very different now and hand drawn, and then there's photography,
Right.
that kind of translates things, and then the computer graphics. I have a hard time getting into the computer graphics. It just seems so cool, you know.
Well,
It's
yeah,
more detached or something.
It is more detached, but it's to me it was the fact that you could create images with it as well, and that you could create things with images that weren't and still aren't possible with just pen and paper, of course. Especially when you program things, and what you could do, for example, is just take a photo like this and then write code that would change the colors and animate the changing of the colors and things like
Right.
that. And like I said, the other thing that was attracting me to this major was the awareness that this was an actual possible career choice. And many of my fellow students never really finished. I never finished art school because a lot of us just got hired before we even had a chance to
Because you
finish.
learned this new
We
technology.
learned this new skill, and we were close to Hilversum, which is like the television broadcast center of the Netherlands. And those people from those companies would just poach people from school. before
Right.
we were even
And the-
done.
and
And
the
if you knew
people-
like computer graphics and 3D, especially 3D, then
Right.
you were guaranteed a
A
job.
commercial application.
Yep, you were
Whereas
guaranteed
the
a job.
artists who are doing fine art, their
Well, that
parents
was-
are supporting them or whatever.
Yeah, well, that was always something on my mind, of course. Like, you would think like, oh yeah, I have some success selling this stuff to tourists, but what do you do outside of tourist season, right? And,
Right.
Yeah, and then you can think, well, you can always make illustrations. Well, how many jobs are there for illustrators?
Right,
It's,
right.
it's never going to be, and it still isn't like an easy way to
Sure,
make,
it's very
to make a
hard,
living.
very hard. But
So this seemed like a reasonable, sensible choice to learn and then have that as a marketable skill. And it was actually much later, yeah, well, 4 or 5 years later, that the internet became this public commodity with the World Wide Web, and I learned HTML, and that's when the jobs just kept rolling in. This was in
Sure.
the mid '90s, and Web 1.0. The first internet bubble, and it was just, there was no point.
you were in a good place.
I was in a good place. I was in America at the time, and there was really no reason for me to go back to painting. It's,
Right. Sure.
People, you know computers, you know how to code, and you have an image background. That was
Right.
guaranteed work.
And what brought you here? Because it sounds like you were doing pretty good in the Netherlands too.
I had an apprenticeship and an internship in Karlsruhe at the Center for Art and Media, and I did cool stuff with composers like Sabine Schaefer on immersive audiovisual environments and things like that, and that was really, really cool. And then that ended, and I went back to Amsterdam and worked with my friend Joost in Amsterdam on commercial interactive projects. And one of those projects required us to go to New York to set up a direct internet connection. I think what was it called? ISDN, whatever that was called at the time. I think it was called that. Was it ISDN? ISDN.
ISDN still does nothing.
It still does nothing, right? So we were supposed to have like a satellite office in New York and then in Amsterdam, and then connect that stuff. So I was going to come here with Joost for 2 weeks and set this up. And after 2 weeks, it hadn't finished yet, and I decided staying longer, and then I ended up,
Sure.
just being here. This was sort of an extended business trip that got out of hand. So, yeah.
Right. Right.
And right at that time, this was 1994, is when I think the first commercial internet websites started popping up. And I was doing cool stuff in Amsterdam with interactive CDs, where you could do like commercial projects for brands and advertising with I don't know, sound and video, and that was all cool stuff. And in New York, someone showed me my first website, the Louvre, which was this, what was it, Netscape, or what was the Mosaic was the web browser. And it was this gray page with a tiny little picture. And I remember looking at it, like, that's not going to go anywhere. But I've been doing video and audio, really cool
Sure.
stuff. And this web thing is supposed to take over, but that's what I ended up doing. Is,
Okay.
just doing stuff like that. And the funny thing is that the first websites I built were completely, an artistic kind of approach to it, because we realized that because the web was in its infancy, there wasn't really much you could do in terms of interactivity beyond the tiny picture of the Mona Lisa on a gray background with a blue link text under it. We decided that we could make massive images and put those up on the web and make those images clickable And then it just looked almost like a CD-ROM and really interactive when it was
Right.
just basically creating images.
And so are you working for a company or you're an independent contractor? Or?
Right now, I'm just doing painting. But
No, I meant during that period.
Oh,
with
that
the
period.
tech.
Well, I had a couple of loose end jobs I worked for Prodigy Internet for a while. I worked with Swedish director Nick Erickson on motion graphics. At Editel New York, I did Media Lab administration and all kinds of freelance stuff. Yeah, there was plenty of work at the time.
Right.
And then, of course, the bottom fell out in when did the first bubble end? I forget, 1999 already. It definitely after 2001, after the September 11 attacks, the whole scene in New York in what they called Silicon Alley changed. So that's when I ended up getting and looking for more steady work.
Right. Okay. And this is
And
during
this-
that period? Or?
This is during that period. This is
Right.
at Nick Erickson's studio, and you can tell by the big CRTs that this was probably the early 2000s.
Look at the size of that computer. Yeah.
That was
Or the monitor.
a big
yeah.
ass Macintosh computer. You can see there's like 3 hard disks on top of it.
Right.
With a CD drive that we use as cup holders. I don't think we really did that. I think this was just for the photo. And yeah, that was we had that was the other thing. You can see it here on the photo, but graphics drawing tablets were a thing that I was totally enamored with. That was back in the early 90s when I came back from Germany and worked in Amsterdam. One of the things we had was computers with a graphics tablet. So that's, if you're asking like how can you combine computers and drawing, well that was the
Sure.
obvious way. So
Right.
you could actually, and I have projects that you can find on my website too, where I did storyboards that I drew on the computer with a graphics tablet.
Right.
And I thought that was actually pretty cool because you could like draw a sketch and then apply like lighting effects on it and just
Right.
change the colors after the effects. So that's something you could never do in painting.
What's the device on that's sitting on the desk to your left?
To my left, I think that's just a box.
Oh, okay.
That's just a box of probably one of the hard drives.
Got it.
But the graphics tablet, well, that was something that we had to use, and I still use it extensively. If you need to like create masks for images and stuff like that, there's
Is
just
that
no.
the rotoscoping? Or?
That was rotoscoping.
Right.
Rotoscoping is when you draw mats sequentially.
Okay. I read your bio and I had to look that up. I wasn't sure.
Oh, yeah.
I was familiar of a kinetoscope, which is something. totally
Rotoscoping, I think technically is just drawing frame by frame. But if you
Right.
draw a mask, and what I did at the time was work for special effects in advertising. So if you had a little like moving creature that moved over, say 30 frames, you had to draw a mat around it, lines around that creature 30 frames in a row.
Right. Sure.
And of course, you cannot do that with a mouse. So a graphics tablet was the way to go. And yeah, I still use that extensively. And there was software, even early on, there was really good software, like Painter was the name of the software that had natural media effects in it, and that stuff still exists. And now, of course, everyone uses Procreate on their iPads to do similar things.
Right. A world I don't know. So another medium or
Not a medium. Well, I've always been interested in music, right?
Okay.
So even when I looked like the part of this new wave like rocker in the 80s, I've always played drums first and foremost, and guitar, and wrote songs. And at some point, I was just doing a lot of work and needed another outlet. So I went back
Sure.
to music, and I played for more than 10 years in this band Kill Effects, and I was
Right.
a drummer for that.
And that's not in the States, though.
No, this was in New York.
Oh, in New York.
This is
okay,
a
cool.
New York punk rock band.
Right.
Both of these guys were New Yorkers,
Mm-hmm.
and you know we played like CBGBs and the Continental and Desmond's Tavern and a whole bunch of
Cool.
places. And then unfortunately, our bass player got an accident, and it became gradually more and more impossible for him to keep up with doing this. And then we just we dissolved the band.
Right. Right. Do you miss it?
I like playing with other people, but this I was never like a full-time musician, so I
Right.
can't say musician's life was hard, because it was basically, once every couple of weeks that we played out. But it was fun to play out. It's just like making art for people.
Right.
It's fun just playing
You're
music
getting
for
immediate
people.
reaction.
It's fun to do.
Yeah, sure.
I still play music, of course. I have an electronic drum kit at home that I play on, and I play guitar. And Mindy plays the ukulele, and we sing and
Ukulele,
play.
I
and,
love the ukulele.
And we do
Yeah.
like open mics and stuff, so we
Uh-huh.
still do that. But,
Cool.
this was a distinct period that I
Right,
thought I'd mention.
right. And
And of course, I go to museums and and look at art.
right, right.
Why not?
What's your favorite museum in New York? I mean, you probably go to see exhibits, but is there one that you really revere?
I guess I just like the Met.
Uh-huh.
Because, it's odd as it sounds, maybe, I'm not that interested in most modern art.
Okay.
And you can tell probably by the work I make.
Right.
It is I'm sort of rather traditional. So if I go to, I'm not very good at like naming you my favorite artists either, but I like looking at paintings like that and just looking at brushstrokes and figuring out how they did it.
Right.
When I don't get that same with, like, let's say, most modern art, because it's not that I don't like the art, it's just that I can't really take anything away from the technologies used
Right,
for
right.
my own work.
Sure, sure.
So the Met is full of stuff.
I like your hat.
That's why I like hats. So
Yeah.
I got plenty of hats. And,
Right.
Man of many hats.
Right.
So this is at the Collective Hoboken, which is a gallery on Washington Street. Currently looking for new accommodations, but they were the first to invite me. Well, I walked up to them and I said, "Hey, you have room for my work?" And they said, "Yeah, we love your work. Let's hang it." So
Good. Good, good, good.
actually, some of the pieces are here now.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I entered for group shows. This is One Mile Gallery in Kingston. They had a group show themed Phantasma or Fantasia? Phantasma, I think it was. And I don't really know what the theme was, but they liked this particular piece, which was a gouache painting of a rusty car in Pine Hills in the
Right.
Catskills.
And we really haven't talked about your work right now, what
Right.
was in the exhibit. Generally, we like to tease people and tell them, hey, you got to see it in person rather than
I hope
just
people
make
come
it
see-
part of the
see it in person.
slideshow. There's
Yeah.
nothing, we're a firm believer you should come see it
Right.
as opposed to just the digital screen. So could you talk a little bit about what you're seeing in the exhibit?
Well, you asked me for some works to put up for the exhibit, so I tried to come up with like what I thought was a unifying theme for
Mhm.
of my recent work. And since I live in Hudson County, and after COVID, definitely worked from home a lot along with Mindy. And a thing that we did to get outside was just go on walks and trails in the area. And of course, the Meadowlands is the big attraction here. So what is interesting about the Meadowlands to me is that it vaguely reminds me of the Netherlands in places,
Why?
because of the water and the reflections and the big skies and things like that. And so what I wanted to put together was, what always interests me is where nature touches like human infrastructure, and you get plenty of that in the Meadowlands here in New Jersey in general. So the way I sort of laid this out, this show, was I wanted to start like, if you start at the back, like have more of nature scenes here, and then when you go back to the staircase over there, it becomes more and more urban with everything in between.
Okay, sure.
That's the way
I mean,
to lay it out.
that's what attracted me to your work, was that sort of tension between nature and New York City skyline in the
Right.
background, and that you could be standing on a bridge in Mill Creek Mall, not the mall, but the park.
The marsh. Mill Creek
The marsh,
Marsh,
Mill
yes.
Creek Marsh, which is very close to here. It's
Right.
like, takes 10 minutes to get there, really.
Right, right.
And you could see there's all these great wooden bridges, and you could see egrets on them. And in the background is
Well,
the
yeah.
New Jersey Turnpike whizzing by,
Which you can
cars
still hear.
honking.
Right, right.
And then you see corporate logos from things.
Well,
and then New
one
York
painting
City.
I specifically like try to address that, because there is this one stretch where you walk on the path, and then between the trees on the side, you can actually see the signage on the highway.
Right.
And that's just it's very interesting, because you're between like the mall and the highway and urban developments, and you step into this park, and even though you can still hear the highway, it becomes like this own little
Yeah,
paradise.
it's very strange because sometimes you'll
Yeah.
hear nature, and then sometimes you'll hear the air brakes on a trailer,
Right.
tractor trailer truck.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
And then you look the other way, you can see the Ferris wheel from American Dream.
Right.
It's wild. So to me, it's like real New Jersey.
It
and
is.
if I just saw the nature, that could be anywhere in a way. But when you know that you're so close to all this urban development, it's kind of interesting, I think.
Well, it's to me. There's also a tension in finding subjects like that because I'm personally attracted to it, but also coming up with something that I can sell.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I noticed is that even though everything I paint is something that I've observed myself, taken photos of, or seen in person, so none of it is like a fantasy landscape, and they're all real places. But I found people on markets coming up to me and saying, "I want to get this piece because it reminds me of where I grew up."
And you just be quiet, right?
Well, no, I try and tell them, well, this is actually in Hackensack
Right.
River County Park.
Sure.
I'm like, no, I grew up in North Carolina, and it looks exactly like that. And I'm
Right.
like, well, that's actually the interesting thing about painting landscapes is that they are not interchangeable so much, but everyone sort of like recognizes something in it that means something special to them.
Yeah, it's a
And
memory
what-
connection.
Right, and then when you take like a painting and it has a specific recognizable thing in it, then I'm always a little worried that it becomes harder to sell.
Oh, interesting. So you're conscious of that.
Well, at the same time, I like that it is a real place because, like I said, I don't really want to paint fantasy landscapes, but I also want to be able to sell it. So, there's this one piece over here that has these power lines in it, and well, that of course could be anywhere because anywhere has power lines.
Right.
But there are other bits where it's clearly the Jersey Turnpike that you can see. And
Right.
Of course, I've been schlepping that from market to market because people think it's cool, but they don't necessarily want to hang it on the wall.
Right,
So,
right. Interesting. And your paintings range from what size to what size here?
Well, typically between 4x4 and the biggest here is 20 by 16 inches.
Okay.
And the 20 by 16s, like I said, I specifically made fairly recently for exhibits like this because they're too big to bring to a market
Right, right.
and too fragile.
And the medium you're working with usually?
Medium, I started out with gouache, and then I realized that gouache was a bit too fragile, so I moved to casein, which is kind of like gouache but has a more permanent binder. And then I would wax that later, put cold wax over it to protect it. And then pretty late to the party, I suppose, I discovered that acrylic is also a thing. And
Sure.
acrylic dries almost instantly, and
Right.
that's what I've been doing lately.
Right.
So it's mostly, what you see here is mostly casein and acrylic.
Right. And you're painting at home in a sense? You have a designated area?
I have the dining table is where I usually set up, and then I
Right.
clear it out and for dinner and stuff
Right,
like that. Yeah,
right.
It works fine.
Sure.
Studios are also expensive, and like I said, I don't really paint on location. I know a lot of people like doing that. I always found it uncomfortable, and I know that the experience is probably different, but I like being at home where I have like running water and
Refrigerator, right.
refrigerator, not to be underestimated. Yes, absolutely, things
Right.
like that. Cats to play
Right.
with, my wife to crack jokes to,
Right.
and things like that.
So here's a question for you and Mindy. How did you guys meet?
Oh, the internet.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Everyone says, "Oh, really?" I'm like, "Isn't that how everyone meets these days?" You don't know. Okay. Well. But yeah, this year's 20 years ago. We just back then you would write profiles.
Uh-huh.
You would painstakingly write a profile to put yourself in the most positive light possible, and I guess it worked for both of us.
Yeah, sounds like it. That's
Yeah.
great. That's great. So you have, you started as a young kid selling work on the street, essentially, and having that exchange with people walking by. And you're back to drawing. You're not doing the techie stuff anymore, or are you?
I recently got back into, like I said, my website is, I think, an extension of my art practice, and I've been doing some serious work with AI-assisted coding on my
Right.
websites, but it's not really something. The tech industry has completely changed since I last worked in it, so I'm actually, you can say, sort of full-time in back to making visual art, but I like to think that my tech background helps me
Sure.
in the business sense. Not so
Mhm.
much like I'll make money building websites, although I'm definitely open for discussions about that. But using the tech background to make my online presence more profitable.
Right. I was just trying to think of ways combining. Would you make your website interactive where?
My website is highly interactive.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
In what way?
In the sense that you can browse through it, you can find art based on different criteria. I extensively tag all my work as well.
Okay.
So if you're looking for Meadowlands or Wetlands,
So
or
it's like
trees,
searchable in a way?
It's
or-
totally searchable on
Wow.
content.
So we should put that on the screen here. Could we do that?
I don't know if your
Yeah.
tech person can do
Right.
that, but it's a pretty cool website, and
Right.
I built like a custom ordering system. So if people have commissions, there's a way that they can like send me reference photos. I can send them work of the pictures of the work in progress, that kind of stuff. It's my website is also my inventory management tool.
Mhm.
And I always hand out business cards on markets too. Like, if you
Right.
like it, but you can't make up your mind right now, you can go to the website and find
Sure.
the piece for sale there too.
It almost seems like you could market that, what you're doing.
Yes.
With the website for a lot of artists. I don't know if you want to get involved in that. but
I don't rule that out. It is just that I know that building websites for other people can be really, really frustrating because a lot of people don't really know what's involved and
Sure.
think that everything is just like, oh, click a button. And the thing is, for most of what people want nowadays, like I learned to hand code a website. Most people nowadays can just go to any of these commercial builders that are out there, like Squarespace or Wix or whatever, and you set up an account and you click a few buttons, and they even have AI-assisted website builders for you.
Right.
You tell them, I'm an artist, I want to sell my work, and they say, well, upload some pictures, tell us something about yourself, and 3 clicks later, boom, you have
So-
an art website.
Right. So I'm just trying to think hadn't really thought about it, but could you have a picture on your website and then you click on it and then you'd hear the audio that one might experience if they're there?
Sure, I could do that. but then-
I'm not saying you should.
No, but it's you can make it entire interactive experiences, and of course, I've actually been involved in building exactly that kind of thing for a long time.
Right.
For my personal work right now, I don't think that's something I
Sure.
necessarily need to do. Also, I don't go out and record audio as I'm
Right.
walking.
Got it. And you sign all your work.
I sign all my work with
Right.
the first name, just like Van Gogh always signed Vincent. I don't know. It's just,
And so, yes, this is a great example of your work. I forgot we had this coming up. So that's the power lines.
that's in the Court Park in Lyndhurst.
Right.
So that's that. What's interesting is that, of course, power lines are everywhere, and so this could be technically anywhere. But these are the Hackensack mud flats, and what you see, what looks like tree is actually the hills of the landfill there.
Right. And then is that jetty you walk out on?
That is there is some kind of jetty there. That's
That I
what
know.
it's
I
in.
remember
You probably know where it is.
experiencing the power lines above it.
Yeah, they're
And you
everywhere.
You walk out, and then
the
it's
Court
kind
Park
of
is
dead
another.
ends.
It's another interesting park because it's right under the approach to Newark Airport.
Right.
So there's always airplanes going
Right.
above you in both directions.
Sure.
And what's also fascinating to me, at least, is that you have the New Jersey Turnpike on one side, but also the power lines, and then these big landfills, these massive hills of trash, New York City trash,
Right.
that are all around you.
But now they are green.
But the trees are growing out of
Yeah.
it, and animals live there now, and
Right.
it's a fascinating place.
Sure.
And Mindy and I like to go for walks there. And Mindy is into the birds, and I'm there for the sunsets.
Right.
And this works
right.
out really, really
I think
well.
my favorite, parks. This is in Lyndhurst, right?
Yes.
Yeah. is the one in Secaucus, the Mill Creek.
Mill Creek Marsh, yeah.
Yeah, just because it's really close.
It's a
And
different.
This one getting to can be wild.
This one is also it is pretty far out. There is
Right.
no.
But you got to drive in no man's
You need
land
a car.
for a while.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that no man's land is also quickly getting built up now by
Right,
distribution centers and
Right,
whatnot.
right.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was for years. They were just moving the massive amount of dirt,
Right.
and it's for those warehouses.
It's all like Amazon warehouses, I think.
Right. No, it's true.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
true.
And yeah, if you don't have a car, that place is very hard to get to. But it's also it's a very different type of park. It's full of reeds, and they've got these bridge boardwalks things going on there.
Sure.
So it's good for birds. But Mill Creek Marsh, for example, has deer and groundhogs, and we've even seen foxes.
Yeah, foxes.
So
And those cedar stumps that show up,
the cedar stumps, yeah,
which
that
are
was.
just crazy.
That is actually, I learned that too, that cedar actually doesn't rot over time.
Right.
So when the Dutch colonists first came to New Jersey and called it New Netherlands at the time, I thought they found it like that. But what they did is
No.
they chopped down
Yeah.
all these cedars
Right.
for building,
Right.
and those stumps are still left there. They just don't rot. They just,
Right, and that's, you hear Patterson Plank Road, and, they were all built from those
From
cedar
those planks,
planks
yeah,
originally. And they have to be refreshed, though. If they're in water, they won't rot. You take them out of water, apparently they rot.
Okay, but yeah, that's
from what I heard.
the nice thing about Mill
Right.
Creek Marsh is also that it still has tides, right? Is it
Right.
connected to the
Yeah,
Hackensack
estuary,
River?
yeah. And, so
You can come
everyone should see your paintings, but they should all experience these places. I'm going to guess within Hoboken, very few people have been to, the places that you've been painting of. And it's 15 minutes away.
Well, unfortunately for a lot of these places, and I guess in America in general, you just need a car because it's very hard to get to
It's true.
either by bike or public transportation.
Right.
But yeah, there is fantastic stuff here in the region, and if there's anything that you take away from this exhibit, I hope it's that they try and figure out where this was and where these locations were.
Sure. Okay. I think we're winding down. Anything else you want to add to this that you think people should know?
No, I think we've covered a lot of ground.
Okay,
so.
good. It's been fun.
It's been fun indeed.
Good. Okay, we're kind of closing up. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching. And again, the exhibit, I didn't even see the title. I forgot to read it. Reflected Lowlands, Wetlands on the Urban Edge, a Dutch perspective on the Hudson County wetlands, drawing and paintings by Hens Breet. So we open next Sunday. Everyone is invited. We have a membership and all that, but we like to make it available to everyone. And we'll also be opening our gallery show downstairs, which is very different. So we got two great shows opening next Sunday, February 1st. And we do want to thank Hudson County Cultural Affairs. They help support our exhibits with promotional materials and the advertising that we do, and they do a great job. Then we have a group of people we refer to as the Shipyard Circle. They are all these people are Keystone supporters who help make us look good because they provide some finances, and the people of Asterix are our museum trustees. We have great museum trustees. And then this is the show that I was alluding to downstairs. It's called What They Saw, Hoboken's Amateur Photography Clubs from 1889 to 1934. And these are pictures that most people in Hoboken have never seen.
That looks fantastic.
And they're two amateur photo clubs who would gather. It was social, but they also got into photography. And it's really when photography became a little easier. They're using coated glass plates and sometimes early roll films, large negatives, so you get a pretty good quality. And they just photographed the town. And, everyone loves Hoboken if they live here, but to see how it's changed and how it's similar is really fascinating. So that again opens February 1st. And then we do have another program called Hoboken Talks, and I don't know if we have the date for the next one, but it'll be coming up hopefully in February, and then we'll be doing that, on a monthly basis. And then this show is archived on YouTube, so we hope you check it out and make some comments. It gives us a higher profile. Facebook is another platform, so please connect and spread the word. And I don't think I introduced myself, not that it's that important. My name's Bob Foster. I work with the museum and want to thank Rand Hoppe for engineering the program, and couldn't do it without him. And I think we're going out.